I just got my first Pokemon, and I'm already headed to my first gym. This day could not get any better.
Hey kid, come over here.
Grandpa, you're drunk.
Shut up, I'm not drunk. Hey kid, you wanna learn how to catch a Pokemon?
Not really. I already know how to catch Pokemon.
Fuck it, I'm showing you anyway. Oh my god, it's a Pikachu!
That's not a Pikachu.
Alright kid, now all you gotta do is throw a Pokeball at it.
That wasn't a Pokeball.
See, it's that simple. Alright kid, here's 5 Pokeballs. Don't go spending it all at one thing.
What is going on, guys? This is Dobbs here, bringing you another Pokemon video. And in this video, I'm going to show you 10 things of Pokemon that you probably didn't notice as a kid. But I thought it would be cool featuring another Poketuber that you may know. I had to search far and wide in the most dingus areas known to man. But I finally found her. It only took 20 Ultra Balls, but I finally caught her. The dingus Pokemon, Candy Eevee.
Hey guys, it's Candy Eevee here.
And if you don't know who Candy Eevee is, she's also a Poketuber who does top 10s, gameplay, and Pokemon card openings. So be sure to check out her channel. These 2 videos are my favorite. And also, Kenny and I are doing another collaboration video on her channel, Top 10 Strangest Things in Pokemon, so don't forget to check that out after this video. So enough of my blabbering, let's get on with the video. Out of all the characters in the Pokemon games, there's always something odd about Brendan. I always wondered, why did they give him white hair? Whenever I was a kid, I always thought he had like magical powers or something. I thought it was going to fit into the lore of the Pokemon game, but they never addressed it, so that was left a mystery for many years. Well, just recently when the Pokemon remakes came out, I found out it was actually his hat. His hat is white and his hair is dark brown. This was mind-blowing, but it actually made a lot of sense. And if you're wondering what he looks like without his hat, it actually shows him in the manga. You see he has a scar there. That's actually from a fight from when he was little, when he was defeating a little girl from a Salamence. So maybe that's why he wears a hat. But regardless, this was still a mind-blowing thing to find out.
If you've played the first generation of Pokemon, then you would probably recognize these 2 Pokemon, Paris and Parasect. Well, these 2 Pokemon have darker origins than we may have realized back when we were kids. In Paris' case, its Pokedex entries imply that while the mushrooms are parasitic and grow along with Paris, they don't actually impact the way the Pokemon behaves. However, when we look at its evolution Parasect, we can see that the mushroom takes up a large portion of this Pokemon's body, and when comparing the eyes of Parasect to its pre-evolution Paris, it definitely has a more vacant and, well, unsettling stare, like it's not even alive anymore. Well, isn't that creepy?
Have you ever wondered how Game Freak comes up with the Pokemon cries? Well, it's probably a different process nowadays with advanced technology and all, but back then in Pokemon Red and Blue, Game Freak had a clever way of making them, and I bet you guys never noticed it, because I didn't notice it until this was brought up to me. Here, check this out. Sounds the same, right? Well, those are actually 2 different Pokemon. That was a Charizard and a Rhyhorn. And the only difference between their cries is that Charizard's cry is slightly higher pitched and shorter by 0.006 seconds. And it's not just with Charizard and Rhyhorn, there are 10 other Generation 1 Pokemons with similar cries, with just small changes between the 2. Let me know down in the comments if you can figure them out.
In regard to character, Silver is definitely one of the strongest rivals in Pokemon's history. One of the features that defines his character would be his hatred of Team Rocket, though in the original Gold and Silver, this was never even explained, so we never actually knew. But Heart Gold and Soul Silver reveals an entire backstory. If you activate the Celebi event in these games, then Celebi will take you back in time where you get a front row seat to the cutscene that explains everything. It shows Silver and the boss of Team Rocket, Giovanni, having a confrontation which seems to take place after Team Rocket was taken down by Red. The nature of this cutscene heavily implies that Silver and Giovanni have some kind of close relationship. It's not actually stated in English, but in the Japanese version of this event, Silver actually calls Giovanni dad, so Silver hates Team Rocket as a result of being abandoned by his father. It's crazy that they kept such an important part of Silver's background secret for so long.
The infamous question, who was the very first Pokemon? We all thought it was Bulbasaur or Pikachu, because well, Bulbasaur is number 1 in the Pokédex, and Pikachu is the mascot of Pokemon. Well, at some extent, yes, Bulbasaur is the first Pokemon in the Pokédex, but he wasn't the first Pokemon ever made. There was actually 152 Pokemon before Bulbasaur was even created. Not even I knew that before just recently, but the true number 1 Pokemon is Rhydon. I didn't even know this until years after Pokemon Red and Blue. Finding this out for the first time was insane to me. And if this is your first time finding out, you're probably in disbelief. Rhydon has the index number 1, which means he was the first Pokemon added to the game. So if you ever wondered why there was a bunch of Rhydon statues all over Pokemon Red and Blue, it was for that very reason, honoring the first Pokemon ever made.
Back in the days of Red and Blue, during Pokemania, Pokemon was all the rage and was the topic of discussion frequently in playgrounds. A combination of its popularity among children and the lack of an internet presence meant that rumors could be spread pretty easily, and there would be little to no way to validate them. The most famous of them all is probably the Mew under the truck story. Well, the rumor was that if you use strength on this truck, then you would find the elusive Mew. Mew is the only Pokemon that can't be legitimately obtained in the game. It was only ever given out at events, and even then in very limited numbers. But we weren't to know this. And so young trainers far and wide tried to find their Mew under the truck, but to no avail because this rumor is false. But what's pretty interesting is that in Fire and Leaf Green, even though it serves literally no purpose, they kept this area with the truck in the game. I guess that was just kind of their way of acknowledging the rumor after all that time and poking a little fun.
Remember seeing the very first Pokemon episode where Ash gets his Pikachu and starts his journey? Well, at the very end, something very strange happens. After Ash saves Pikachu from all the Spearows, he sees a flying shining bird passing over the sunset. At first, I thought this was just a Fearow and brushed it off like it was nothing, but not until many years later, when Pokemon Gold and Silver were released, I realized it was actually a Ho-Oh, which is a pretty awesome Easter egg they added to the anime. And also, in Pokemon Soul Silver, it states that Ho-Oh only appears to worthy trainers destined for greatness. So maybe this Ho-Oh sighting was a foreshadowing for Ash's great adventure that awaited him, which is pretty deep story writing.
Back in the day, almost all of us collected Pokemon cards, and there were always some cards that were viewed as really rare, even if in reality they weren't. But I'll bet that back in the day you'd never heard of Pokemon Illustrator, aka the rarest card in existence. A total of 39 copies were distributed exclusively as prizes for a few separate drawing competitions for CoroCoro Comic. 39 were distributed, but it's unknown how many actually exist to this day. They do pop up on eBay every now and again, so you can obtain the rarest card in the entire trading card game for the low price of $100,000. That's enough internet for one day.
Remember back in Pokemon Red and Blue, just before Viridian Forest, you see a sleeping old man lying on the ground, blocking the pathway? As a kid, you thought it was just an old man who needed coffee, but in reality, he was actually drunk. Yeah, that's right, he didn't need coffee to wake up, he needed coffee to get rid of his hangover. In the Japanese version, it was actually written that he was drunk, but in the English translation, they decided to change it to a more kid-friendly text. The good old days, where your rival was actually a dick, the Elite Four was actually challenging, and you're being taught to catch Pokemon by a drunk guy. Times have really changed.
What if I were to tell you that the original Pokemon Stadium is actually the second installment of the series? Well, sorta. The Pokemon Stadium that we all know is actually Pokemon Stadium 2 in Japan. The original Pokemon Stadium was only released there too. The reason why it was never released anywhere else would be because in comparison to the sequel, the original Pokemon Stadium only featured 42 Pokemon and was overall pretty incomplete. So when the sequel to Pokemon Stadium was released with all 151 Pokemon and more in-game features, it made more sense to release a much more complete game as the first Pokemon Stadium outside of Japan, instead of releasing both. Now, you may wonder where our Pokemon Stadium 2 fits into all this. While outside of Japan, this is known as Pokemon Stadium 2, in Japan it was actually released as Pokemon Stadium Gold and Silver.
Well, those are 10 things you probably didn't notice in Pokemon as a kid. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like if you did. A lot of time was spent on this video, so it's appreciated a ton. And also, be sure to subscribe for more videos like this. And if you want to follow me on Twitter for fan interactions, video updates, and other cool stuff, follow me at Ethan Dobbs. And for the question of the day, what is something that you didn't know in Pokemon as a kid that you later found out? Be sure to leave it down in the comments. I can't wait to see you guys have in mind. And I'll see y'all next time. See ya.